Good morning, everyone. We are here, Renovating Riches Radio, with another excellent show. We are.
This is gonna be a powerhouse today, man. I met these guys a couple of weeks ago at one of their events. I've actually been following them on Facebook for a little while, and they deliver so much value that I said, man, they need to come to the Renovating Riches Radio and share some more value.
Yeah, with our audience that's always looking forward to hearing new stories and people that have made it or are in the process of
I think we're all making it.
So some ways.
Yes.
So Ricardo, why don't you introduce us to our guests today from Draco?
We have Draco Properties, Draco Properties, and is it Draco Properties?
Draco Properties, yes.
Draco Properties, and we got Undrea and Andy that basically are doing big things here in the Houston area, wholesaling houses, picking up some rentals, so basically all around real estate. And we wanted to basically get to know them better, and instead of us sitting and chatting off to the sides, what we say, why don't we do a podcast together? So basically Andy and Andre can tell us who they are. What do you guys do, man? Where do you come from? Social security number, bank account number.
All right, Andy, you want to get started?
Okay. So Andy Speed started out as a flipper in this business 3 years ago. Started in 2015 February. Jumped in full time right from the get-go.
What do you do before flipping?
I was in supply chain management.
Okay.
So I was U.S. supply chain manager for a pipe manufacturing company. Typical rich dad, poor dad story. Go to school, work real hard, get a job.
Yep.
That next promotion was always where I was trying to get.
I can relate.
I started looking around. I made it to where I thought was where I needed to be, or where I'd aspired to be for all those years. And the more time I spent in that role, the more I saw that I wasn't satisfied.
Right.
I was chasing a paycheck. I was chasing that next promotion. I was chasing that responsibility in the company. And when I got to that point, I looked around and I just wasn't fulfilled. I knew that there was something missing.
Did you go to some seminar or something like that and got fired up about it?
I did. But it was, 6 months after I left corporate America. I was laid off in November, or I guess 4 months after. In February, I went to a 3-day seminar, got hooked. Got sold on the dream. This is quick, easy money.
Absolutely.
So we
It's
bought
always
in.
quick and easy.
They got the guy on stage with a nice watch and a nice suit or whatever. I don't know.
That's exactly what happened. So, we did our $35,000 to join some coaching.
Wow.
And spent the next 6 months learning why we were doing things wrong, and then the next 6 months after that, learning how to do things right. And then I guess year or so into the business of doing things right, Undrea and I met. And, we decided to partner up. I guess it's a little over a year after we met. Started spending a bunch of time together, masterminding together, sharing ideas, sharing challenges, struggles. And then we just started noticing that we were, a really good fit, really compatible, just in our conversations. We had different businesses. And, when we initially had talked, we just had such different businesses that didn't make sense to align. But the more time we spent together, we shared the same values, shared the same direction. And then I started listening to Undrea's dream, and I wanted to support and share in that where I could, and that's how we partnered up.
Cool, man. Are you originally from Houston?
I am.
Okay. So what part of town?
Northwest side. I was born and raised in, not born and raised in Copperfield, but I grew up in Copperfield, 290 in 1960.
I used to live around the area, not far from where you were raised.
Okay.
So how about you, Andre?
So for me, so I was in the gym industry before coming into real estate.
All right.
And so for the last 13 years, I worked for a national gym chain. I was a general manager there. And I liked what I did. You get a chance to see people's lives change.
Yeah, when you exercise, eat healthy. And
a person, comes in, they have some issues. We come in and we're able to change their lives. And so we had this thing, Change Life Through Fitness. And but I always knew I wanted to do something else. I had this entrepreneur mindset. And one day I was looking, like most people, they're looking at these HGTV shows.
Yep.
And so I was looking at this show, and you know how they do it, right? So you have a house, and they find it from a realtor, and then all of a sudden they do a few things and they make $100,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
You're like, what? How do you do that?
That's what got me hooked up.
Right.
It wasn't HGTV. It was Flip This House, actually.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, it was flip or flop. So I was watching the show, but on one of the shows, what they did was instead of finding a house from a realtor, they got the house from a wholesaler. And they said, well, we got this house from this wholesaler. We paid him a $10,000 fee, and then we went ahead and flipped this house. I was like, well, so I rewinded it. He
Who's
said,
a wholesaler?
What's a wholesaler? And they paid him $10,000. That's more than what you pay a realtor for a rinky-dink house that you have there, right? So I said, okay, well so I got on the internet and started Googling, what is wholesaling, right? And when I did that, like all these different videos started popping up with gurus and people selling, trying to sell their
checks
programs.
and Lambos.
Right, basically that's basically what it was. And then I found this one guy, and this guy basically had all these free videos online of, this is how you wholesale, and this is how you do the contract.
Do you remember the name of the guy?
Yeah, it was Ty the Flip Man Taylor, I think his name was, something like that.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, so he had all these videos online, so I watched every one of them, right? And so his main thing was go put out some bandit signs, and I was like, okay, well, what's bandit signs? So I started doing that. Went and put out the bandit signs. Started doing some marketing. So I was doing this. For me, I was working and doing this at the same time. Right. So
yeah, that was your side gig.
You get out of the gym and
right.
Bring your stapler and start putting bandit signs.
Basically, that's the way it worked. Yeah. So I would get up early in the morning, like on the weekends. My wife and I and the kids would go out, and she'd drive, and it's almost like we were creeping at night, right? So we're at 4 a.m. I jump out.
Let me ask you a question.
Right.
Were you scared?
Of course I was. I'm just sweating and going on. I got all this stuff on, I'm looking like a criminal. So I jump out the car. I staple them in. I mean, I actually was hammering. I didn't even know about the wire stakes, right? Yeah. So I'm out there, hammering these things in with a rubber mallet. And then we go to the next spot, and I feel like I put out like 100 of them. I probably put out like 20.
Like, yeah.
Right.
If that.
Yeah, if that, right? So I was just, he said, go put out bandit signs, right? And the other thing was to do some direct mail, right? And so I started doing that, but all of that was happening after I got to work or before I went to work, right? And then I was setting appointments like in between my breaks. So when people were like, hey, can you come at 2? I was like, man, I'm really busy, but I can get there at 7, right? But that's the only time I can get there. And so I just started working this in between work it's how I got started with this. And, but, and the same thing with the marketing. I didn't have that much money to market, but at the same time, I didn't have proof in the concept. So I wouldn't put a lot of money into the marketing part of it. I was spending like $300 a month, and I had my own print shop in the house, which was just
you had your printer, and
I didn't even have the printer.
His wife writing letters.
There you go. So my print shop was my wife writing letters, and
well, those are the most effective ones, right?
Yeah.
When you actually go and because when you get a call,
right.
Man, I remember writing that letter, or having my wife write that letter, and then when she sees the check, she's like, "Now, do you get any checks out of her handwriting?" Yeah.
So what happened was that we started writing them. We said, okay, we can do 25 a day without like breaking our hands on this thing, right? So that's what we were going for. We're going to write 25 letters. We put them in. I finally got smart, like you said, and got my printer to print these things out instead of writing them. But what happened was I started putting ads on Craigslist also. Like we buy houses, and a guy called off the Craigslist ad, and that's how I got my first property.
Okay,
right?
cool.
How long ago was this, Undrea?
So this was December of 2015 where I got it under contract.
3 years ago.
Yeah, that's right about when we were getting started as well with Same as Cash.
Yeah.
Because we were flipping houses just like you before getting into the wholesale. The thing is, we said, man, we need to become wholesalers to get our own deals, because the deals we were finding were not, they didn't have enough. It was more for landlords than for flippers.
Right.
So that's kind of how we started developing. And how about you? How did you get your first property?
My first property was actually off a referral.
Referral.
So when I started, I did the thing that most new investors do, where they spend 6 months learning, 6 months investigating and getting ready, business cards, LLCs, entities, doing all the stuff that you would do. You're told to do.
I spent like 5 years doing that.
Oh man! So I spent.
Don't feel as bad.
I spent 6 months doing that, and then I recognized once I started doing marketing that I needed to get comfortable talking like an investor and believing that I was an investor, because up until that point I was full time, but I hadn't done anything.
Okay.
So it was a challenge for me to get into the mindset of being an investor and telling people I was an investor. And then the first deal actually came from a referral.
Wow.
So,
and those are the best ones, man, because the ROI is huge.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
No
we love referrals.
$0 marketing.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
That's correct. So, all right. So you got your deal as a referral. That was for a flip, correct?
It was it was initially going to be a flip, but we bought it, and then I sold it to a wholesaler. So we owned it, through hard money. It was the first deal, only deal I've ever done through hard money. Sold to a wholesaler, knowing that he was a wholesaler. He wholesaled it again, and then it got wholesaled right after him.
Okay,
So I got
so
wholesaled 3 times.
It was a daisy
Wow.
chain.
It was a daisy chain, yeah, absolutely.
But you bought it right.
I bought it right, yeah.
Right.
I think, I grossed 32. He made 6. The guy behind him made 3.
Okay.
So I
that's
left
not that
9K,
bad
I guess,
deal.
on the bone.
Yeah, and
That's
you know,
interesting.
You know what I like about those is that one deal created enough food on the table for 3 different families.
Right.
Plus, at the end, another guy picked it up to go do whatever with it. You know,
Right.
so I love it. You know,
Right.
it stimulates the whole process. And what about you, Andrea? What do you picked up on the first deal?
So that first deal, so it was a weird house. First of all, I picked up the house, like I said, from a Craigslist ad, and the guy had the house listed for $250. It had been like on the market for like 6 months. He had taken it down. It had been off for about 6 months already, but it was a weird house. It was a 3-story house, but it was in a rural area. It was actually over in kind of the South Park area, but it was just on a lot, huge 10-acre lot by itself. No one else had built on the lot. He only had a 7,000 square foot lot.
Okay.
Because the lot was so small, he had to build the house straight up. So there was no comps, and I didn't know this at the time because there was nothing else that looked like this house.
Right.
And so I went in, and I didn't know what to do. Right, I didn't even know what contract I'm supposed to have. So I
Right.
Googled it before I went out. Like, what kind of contract are you supposed to use, right? So I think I went to Bigger Pockets or something like that. And looked it up. And
Hey, that's one of the best educational
Yeah.
places you can go to. Any questions you have, go to Bigger Pockets.
Go there. Anybody
Somebody
getting started.
blog something about it there.
Right, and that's what happened. I got it. I just said, anybody in Texas has a contract, and a guy from Dallas sent me his, and I said, okay, it's going to work. Okay, so that's what I went with. And I didn't think this guy was going to go for it, but, first time going out, I went out there, I did the repairs as best as I could, and I said, well, I just got to go cheap. They said, just buy it cheap.
Right.
So I got the guy, I said, okay, well, 100,000 is the best I can do on this thing, and he said, I'll take it. I was like, what just happened? I was like,
you offered too much.
I was like, what just happened here?
Well, it depends, right? Because
Right.
I don't know. Did you make good money on the deal?
Yeah, so from there, I ended up selling the house. Actually, it was 105. I got the house under contract for. And so I was like, okay, this is gonna be a slam dunk. This thing was on the market for $250. I think I'm gonna make like $60,000 on this first one. Go buy the Lambo, all that good stuff.
I'll
right?
make my year's paycheck on
Yeah.
the first deal. How about that?
Man, watch this.
You'd be
And-
ruined for life.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, of course, it didn't happen like that. I realized a couple other things. Number one, I didn't have a buyer's list.
Okay.
Right. So I didn't know what to do after that part of it. So I had 10 people on my buyer's list, and I had got those just from people responding from my Craigslist ad, just telling me that they were buyers. I later realized that they were not buyers. Right.
Right.
And so I ended up having a realtor bring the buyer for that property, and so I made the $10,000. We sold it for $115. But I didn't know at the time how to work it with the realtor, so I ended up having to pay the realtor out of my fee. So I ended up with $6,800, and the realtor made her
But
cut.
$6,800 for your first deal is not a bad deal, man.
Yeah. But and the thing that I saw, what happened for me was now I had proof of concept. Like I knew that this thing works, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I think that was probably the first and the last time I actually received an actual paper check, right? And I just copied that thing and I put it in my office. But it's my first and my last time to receive a paper check. But I remember taking that thing home to my wife, and she was like, "It works." And I said, "Yeah, it worked." And I said, if I can make it work once, I can make it work 10, 100 times, right? And so that's what I ended up doing. And I invested that money back into the marketing and started growing it from there.
Good, man. Good for you.
That's an awesome story.
That's an awesome story because, I go to a lot of networking events now. I didn't network as much before because we were very busy flipping houses, okay? I hear all these guys. I buy 300 houses. I buy whatever many houses, and I'm the biggest shot there is out there. But the reality is, most of these networking events is for that one guy that needs that one validation.
Right.
Get their first property, get it under contract, take it to the title company, get title clear. Because now we're finding that a lot of the properties we get under contract, they're cancers. They got all sorts of things on title, right? So to collect that assignment is kind of like, man, milking a freaking dry cow or something,
Right.
The milk is there somewhere, but it doesn't come out.
Right.
So on your case, you went with a realtor, then you paid him a commission, you pay closing costs. The seller got their money, and they were, I'm pretty sure they were pretty happy.
Yeah, very happy.
Made $100,000 now. Could you probably gotten more money out of it? Absolutely. Maybe.
Yeah, today I would, of course, make more money on the deal.
Because you make him pretty much give you the number first.
Right.
And then he'll say, oh, I'm okay with 70 grand or whatever.
Right.
And then you're okay. But, all right. So you started flipping. You started wholesaling.
Mm-hmm.
Then you guys got to know each other. I guess you were his client. Is that how it happened?
You
He
never
may have-
sold me a house.
No, I think.
Now,
he-
I did call your bandit signs
Right.
probably
Okay.
15, 20 times before I realized, okay, these are all going to the same person. I need to just mark this number.
Right.
But I talked to his Pat Live a number of times, not knowing it. And then he'd call me on his cell phone. Hey, man, why do you keep calling my Pat Live?
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I was putting bandit signs out, but we met like about 6 months later. We ended up. He was already in this mastermind here in Houston, and so I ended up joining also.
Okay.
And that's where we were. You know, we really got a chance to know each other at that point.
Right.
We were meeting weekly, I think, at the time, or maybe every other week. But every the times that we met, whether it was once a month or once a week, we had to put out our numbers, like, you know, how much marketing did you put out, you know, how many leads did you get, and that kind of stuff. And so I noticed in the class, like, he was the top or I was the top. So I put a mark on him, and he didn't know that, right? So then
He got tagged.
He
I
got
came
tagged.
back 1 week and he had like 3 times more calls than I did.
Right. So I was like,
Wait a
okay.
second.
And I remember telling my wife, I said, hey, there's this guy in the that's in the mastermind. I said, I gotta beat him, all right? Because he came in, he thinks he's the hot shot. So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna send more marketing. I'm gonna go out and see more people.
But you know what? That's great competition, man.
Right.
Because he started picking up his game.
Mm-hmm.
He elevated yours right away. Because
Right.
now you're like, hey, who the heck is this guy? You know,
Right.
I gotta pick up my game, and just because of that, then you guys kind of like, you know what? I kind of like this guy. And
Right. Yeah, and that's what happened is that we ended up talking to each other after that, and then we would go and speak at some of the events as the students. Like we were doing well in there,
Right.
and we got a chance to really know each other. And like you said, we ended up having the same values and the core values. We were, you know, we ended up moving in the same direction. And instead of just being my competitor, we said, hey, you know, why don't we just combine, right, and go bigger together, right? And so the main thing we wanted to make sure is that, you know, 1 + 1 = 2,
Right.
right?
That was actually the exact way it was phrased. I was
Right.
just thinking that it's like, look, as long as we were sitting at where were we? We had a restaurant having lunch, and you know, if 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, let's do this.
right.
So what does 1 + 1 equal? And so I think we found that it's equal right now about 3.5, 4.
Right.
So you know, combining efforts and dividing and multiplying it really works.
Dividing-
Can you explain that a little bit more for our audience? You know, they didn't understand what you mean by 1 + 1 doesn't necessarily mean 2.
Okay.
Or equal 2.
So say that Undrea had his goals, I had my goals, and if we were to combine our efforts, divide and conquer, if you will, 1 + 1, you know, our 2 efforts can't equal double what our individual goals were. It needs to equal something higher than that.
Right.
Okay.
So it needs to be a multiplier if we're going to partner up, because it just to
Doesn't make
divide
sense
the effort
otherwise.
and just double the reward is the same as just doing it on our own. And
Right.
you know,
Right.
do we fit, first of all, you know, from a tactical side, or whichever way you look at it, is it a good fit? And we spent a lot of time actually from the time it was first proposed. Actually, Undrea proposed it. I didn't know I had a target on my back at the time. He proposed partnering up about a year before we actually did. And I was like, no, man, it just I don't see how it fits. You know, I hated wholesaling. Like everything about wholesaling, I hated it.
Right.
Wholesaling for me was a byproduct of bad marketing, and it had a negative taste in my mouth because I wasn't focused on it. I felt like it pulled me away from what I really wanted to do. And I was looking at it wrong, and it took me some time. I'll take the credit for this. It took me some time to understand that, you know, there's more to it than just this.
Right.
And then, you know, over the next year, just spending more time together, you know, we were doing the marketing stuff for spending, I guess probably 2 or 3 additional afternoons or evenings, you know, hanging out, talking. And then
Masterminding. So
Yeah.
you guys were basically throwing ideas together. How can we make this work?
Right.
What would you do? What would I do? And, you know, making the energy move around.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah,
you get
and-
your deal, and he gets his deals, right?
Right.
And
Right.
for people that have been thinking, or you know, about getting a partner, this is a good example of how to do it. It's not just the first guy you meet at a RIA or real estate investment group or event, and you just meet someone, say, hey, I found my partner. You know, the way you're explaining right now, there's a process to it, right? You
Right.
have to, make sure that you meet that person, know their goals, their ambitions, their core values, and start building that relationship before you even decide to, put your name down for an LLC
Yeah.
or.
Well, it's a marriage.
Right.
In
Yeah.
every sense, it's a marriage.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can marry your best friend. Sometimes that works out. Sometimes it doesn't. But if you marry somebody that you're compatible with, that you work well with, that my weaknesses are his strengths kind of thing, then it works.
Right.
Yeah,
And
in our case, we can relate to what you guys are saying because we didn't start being partners right away. I actually had other business partners on the flipping side,
right.
and then as he started following, getting properties for us, and we started getting into a rhythm. That's how kind of like Same as Cash was born, and it was the same thing. You know what? We're already working on these things together. Why don't we just go and make it legal and grow it? So for those of you that are actually looking to make because a lot of people are making mistakes, they go and they find somebody they like, and it's like love at first sight.
Right.
I just fell in love. Let's go create an LLC. Man, that's to get out of an LLC when you want to get out because now you're breaking up that marriage. It's getting a divorce, man. It's no different. Now you gotta start separating things here and there, and I've gone through that. So, and I've not done it on bad terms, but everyone's gonna go pull their side, right? So
Right.
you gotta spend that time. You gotta get laid enough before you put that ring on, and then you
Right.
sign on the paperwork. So it's a great example on how you create a partnership, which maybe at a different episode we can talk about more about how what is the process that someone, because that's a great idea. What is the process that someone should follow to create a partnership? Why would I partner with Andy or Andre or Dennis or how do we make sure that this thing should work?
Right.
So we got to write that down.
Yeah.
Dennis.
Where did the name came from, Draco?
So Draco, so short for Undrea. Some people call me Dre.
Right.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And so Draco is Dre's company, and I also have two sons. One's name's Drayson, which is Dre's son, and then we have Draylon. Right. So been going with the Dre for a while.
Drayson 2 didn't the wife didn't buy into that one,
Right.
so it had to be Draylon.
Right. So that's
So it's more, your.
Well,
know,
the way I
that's
see
how
it
it all
is
started.
Draco Properties.
Right.
Because he was the guy flipping houses.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I'll go with that one. That's
yeah.
good.
So,
I walked in the wholesale business. I mean, it wasn't the name wasn't any issue for me. It's Drayco Properties. It has been Drayco Properties. I came in to support his vision
Right.
Oh, I
on the
see.
wholesale.
Okay,
So
understand.
I'm 100% okay with that. And
okay, so it's kind of like Andre is the CEO and you're the CO,
CEO,
pretty much.
correct.
Right.
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
that's exactly how it goes.
Yeah, and
Right.
you need both, man, because the moment you both start doing the same thing, it doesn't go that well. We know it. So
Right.
Yeah.
we divide
Right.
and conquer too. So it's I like seeing this happen somewhere else. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because we don't get to see many of teams of twos. There's some out there that are very successful. For the most part, most of the wholesalers I come across, they work alone.
Right.
They're
They're a
one-
solopreneur. They've got a high-paying job. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
there's a lot of that out there.
That's
And
right.
there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
I mean, there's a lot of freedom and a lot of perks to being a solopreneur.
Right.
So, all right, let's get back on Draco Properties. So, now that you guys found love, I guess, and you started your business together, or you joined his vision, where do you guys go from there? Like, okay, you're wholesaling, but what is it for Draco going forward?
Right. So we can go back to when we partnered up. Is that it's how we're going to grow and scale the business was really the next thing. Is how can we fire each other out of jobs is what we wanted. And so of course I was in the business by myself at the time, other than like a transactional coordinator, and I had a VA that was doing some things for me.
Right.
And so Andy came in and started doing acquisitions, right?
Okay.
And so the first thing was, if we're really going to build this out, then we needed to fire him out of going to see houses,
Right.
And the best way to do that is to go hire and
Bring
train
another
some,
acquisitions person.
right? And
So
so
the first 3 months, it was fire Undrea from acquisitions, fire Undrea from dispositions.
Right.
Get Undrea thinking on Undrea marketing, you know, because, I mean, you've met Undrea. He's kind of a magnet for people.
Right,
so
right,
we
right.
needed to get him freed up as much as we could so he could be who he is.
Right.
And then it was just, it's fire Undrea. And then it became fire
So
me
you
from
took
acquisitions.
over negotiating and basically the work, the leg work.
I did. It was,
I was doing dispositions.
yeah, it was probably 3 weeks into partnered up with Undrea. And, you know, we jumped in, hey, let's just start doing, let's not worry about all these details right now. Let's just get going and see, make sure it's a
Action
good fit.
taker. I love that, man. When you get action takers, like, because a lot of people, they go and it's like, we got to get this right. And then we got to get this other thing right. And we got to get, and everything needs to be, you know, on a perfect boxed in
We're not those people.
sequence. You know?
We've never been afraid to fail.
Yeah, we're
so
not
we
those
just
people.
do it. And I made the mistake of telling Undrea within, you know, the first 3 weeks, hey man, you gotta keep me busy. You know, I'm only looking at 1 house, 2 houses a day right now. You know, he scaled back the market a little bit. We were trying to transition. Oh man, I'll never say that again.
Yeah.
I looked at probably, I know the following Saturday I looked at 15 houses in one day.
Wow.
Which was,
That's a lot.
I mean, they were all in the same
I don't think we've
general
ever done
neighborhood.
that.
It was the longest day of my life.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was consistently 3 days after that. So he responded. He's a great marketer.
Right.
So he was able to focus more on that. I did the acquisitions, and in doing so, we were able to get over that first leap, which was bringing somebody in, and then we hired Daniel, our dispositions manager.
Which I think I've seen last week
Right.
at one of the events.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the last meetup, he usually introduces us in, and then I think our acquisitions manager spoke at the last one also.
Ben got a little plug and
Right.
did really well, brought a tear to my eye.
Right.
Cool.
That's good.
So how many people you got on your team right now?
6, including us, not including our VAs.
Right.
Okay. So with your VA, how many VAs do you guys have?
3.
That's 9. That's really 9 because those 3 VAs, they really take a lot from your plate.
Right.
Yeah, they got a tremendous workload.
And we are hiring now, so we're looking for some sales, some outside sales. We're looking to hire 2.
Outside sales is guys negotiating house or ladies negotiating houses, right? Okay.
That is correct. With so you got to have some sales experience and some get up and go about yourself.
Right.
And then we're also hiring an admin assistant also to kind of hold us together because, like you said, sometimes
You know
we
what?
just
I
take
may
off.
have somebody for you for that.
Okay.
I did meet somebody yesterday at a networking event in the Katy area, and I wanted for us, but we got enough people already.
Right.
But then I said, maybe I'll send this person somewhere else.
Okay.
So I'll see if I can find the number.
All right.
And
We
give it to
appreciate
you.
that.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate the referral.
Yeah,
for sure.
she's like she sold herself as a I can run an office, I can run these things, and she doesn't mind being part-time first, and kind of like moving towards which us being
You can tell Ricardo interviewed her right now.
I didn't interview her because it was at the networking event, so she got up and kind of like said, look, I'm not employed right now, and this is what I'm looking to do.
Right.
And
So she's brave.
She got up in front of the room and said that.
man,
That's-
there was
that's
like
bold.
30, and
Good-
this is a room full of entrepreneurs.
Good for her.
So that's what got me. I was like, man, this woman, she's good. So
Right. And that's what we need. We need somebody to kind of take charge. And, for us, if you ever sit around us, I mean, the ideas, we start thinking and going, and sometimes we'll think of something, and then the next thing, Andy's already doing it. It's like, we just thought of that.
Yeah.
Right? And he's already moving to action to do it. And then I'm like, okay, let's go. Now, and we're moving
well,
on
that's
to
the
the
good
next
thing
thing.
about
Right.
being synchronized,
Right.
because sometimes you're thinking and you're through telepathy or something
Right.
like that. You're sending messages and he's picking it up and going, and that's what makes really a good team.
Right.
It's like me and my wife, I think about something and I was like, how do you know I wanted that?
Right.
And she's like, I don't know. I just got up and went and did it.
Right. In sync. Yeah.
Instinct. So, all right. So, and you're scaling. You're in the process of scaling because if you got 9 people on your team, that's pretty impressive.
Right.
Especially that for the most part, most wholesaling operations, they stay within 1 or 2.
Right.
Working out of the house. So you have an office.
Right.
I'm
We
going
do.
to assume.
Yes.
And and so where do you go from there? Now you scale up, and what's the plan to supply? I don't know.
Where do we go from the office?
Yeah.
We usually go to the Mexican restaurant in the parking lot.
There's nothing wrong with that. We got one right next door, which is pretty good actually. But so where do you go from there? Like, what is scalability meaning to you?
It's hire, train, repeat.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, right now, we manage all our KPIs pretty well. We have a pretty good pulse on the business. It's continue to fire ourselves from things. I'd take on more of the visionary role. Andres picks up in the integrator like you wouldn't believe. So it seems to be a recurring theme of fire Andre.
Okay.
And that seems to work for us, and we'll continue to do that. Andre's going to keep pushing, going to keep going into different areas, and the more that we can free him up and standardize and scale, I think the better off we're going to be.
Right. And I think, to add to that, I think the thing is that if once we get it scaled to where we want it, and right now, when you start scaling, the other thing that you have to, look at is your training of your people.
And
right?
trial and error.
Right.
What works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, and then the continued training, to standardize the business so that, our thing is that, once we get to a certain point here in Houston, then we want to be able to go to other areas,
right,
and not completely duplicate everything that we have here at the home base.
You don't have to,
right,
because now you have a headquarters.
Right, use that as our headquarters,
right,
and be able to open up in other cities and be able to hit the ground running there. And so we see that, we were looking at something like that here in the final fourth quarter of this year, being able to move into the next city, but the funny thing is we had a little thing called Harvey. So Harvey was like a stimulus package, so we set back for a little bit because you had more properties coming in. For some people, Harvey was a bad thing. For wholesalers, if you did it right, it was actually a good thing for you because you had more houses coming to the market that weren't, people who weren't distressed before now became distressed. So
that's correct, and they're still coming out. I mean,
right,
we're still getting calls from people that
haven't done anything in their flooded houses.
I have a house that flooded twice, tax day in Harvey. And by the way, I haven't done any remediation.
Yeah.
Really, now you're like, do I really want to go inside of that house and breathe all that stuff? And, Harvey was for a lot of people a blessing in disguise, and for a lot of people was a bad thing.
Right.
For us, on the flipping side, if you're flipping houses, it wasn't good because you lost all your workers now because they're going to do all demolitions.
Right.
If you're a wholesaler, you got to do is play the waiting game, which is or actually get into action for your marketing, but now you're just waiting for calls to happen, and people to get in contact with you. That way you can go lock them all up. And as one of our business was being a little kicked in the rear by losing all our people, the other one was thriving because now we're getting all these houses that are flooded, and we weren't afraid to, pick them all up.
Right.
Because we knew it was a temporary thing. So
getting the rehabbers, getting your construction workers was probably the biggest problem.
And it's still a challenge today.
Yeah, that's what we saw. Yeah.
It's a challenge today, a year later, getting good crews to stay constant because they're still finding pockets of work out there that needs to happen, and they want to charge $150 to hang a sheet of drywall, and like, really, that doesn't cost that much.
Right.
So going back to you guys. So Harvey kind of like said to you, okay, don't scale up yet out of Houston.
Right.
Concentrate here because there is not enough meat on the bone here.
Yeah, go deeper.
Go deeper. So I went to one of your events, which I believe there was a lot of value, and I admire that you guys are actually delivering value to other people to help them go with their wholesale, because it was for wholesalers.
Yeah,
that's what got my interest. I was like, man, this one is for wholesalers. Okay, I'm a wholesaler, so I'm more than welcome to show up, right? And why do you guys put this thing together? What is the main? It's called, by the way, the Houston Premier Property Wholesale Network. Look it up on Meetup, and Andy and Andre are hosting it. You guys are hosting it in the north side of town, right? In the Houston area.
249 and 1960.
Okay.
Yeah, near Willowbrook Mall.
249 and 1960. And how do you guys come up with this meetup?
So, and we talk about at the beginning of each meetup for that reason is that what happened was there's a couple of things. We had wholesalers start coming to us, right, and they had questions and things like that, and we wanted a platform where we can handle some of this all at once. But the other thing that we saw in the market is that we saw that wholesalers were getting a bad name in the marketplace. Yes. Either they were, wrong ARVs, wrong construction numbers, whatever it was, they were bringing properties to the market that didn't make sense, right? And, for us, we looked at that and say, well, that's a reflection on us also because we are wholesalers. So when people are like, well, that wholesaler, they're talking about us when they say that, right?
Yeah.
And so we wanted a platform to where we can go out, we can have wholesalers come in, and we basically just give them free knowledge, all right, on how to do this the right way, all right, and treat it like a business, and really learn how to evaluate properties, ARVs, how to sell property, how to market, because there was a lot of, I didn't have that when I first got started. I went online, but I didn't really see a meetup where someone had something going on for free. There was people that were charging for it, which we paid a lot of
Right.
money over the last year,
And still continue to do so.
we'll continue to join masterminds and education, but it's our way of giving back for those who don't have the money to go out and put $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 down on your education. This
Right.
is a way to come and get it for free, right? And it's our way of giving back to the marketplace, and that way hopefully it'll bring help out with the name of wholesalers, and it'll be a reflection on us, at the end of the day.
No, and it'll bring you a lot of business too.
Right,
Because
right.
you help those guys out.
It comes
What's
back
going to
around.
happen is they turn around, they go lock up properties, and they're like, "Can you guys help me dispose this thing?"
Right.
Absolutely. Come on over. Let's go do business together.
Right.
And it's the first Monday of every month.
It's the first Monday of each month at it's at the Hilton Garden Inn. It's just right there at 249 and
Pretty good
1960 area.
location.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of parking space. You got 2 restaurants in between. So
It's first Monday. If you don't start the month off right, you're not going to end it right. So first Monday,
Be there.
let's get it started.
I love it, man.
There you
It's
go.
all about mindset. You guys you're right. It's right on point. It's how you start your month. It's like how people, I've seen people, I hate Mondays. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
That's like the best day of the week,
Right.
man. That's when you set the trend for the rest of the week. So I'm going to assume you guys do a lot of self-development. What do you do for
We
self-development?
do. There's a rule in our company. You got to be growing.
Okay.
If you're not growing, you're shrinking.
Right.
And if you look at each individual, they're all growing in some way, in whatever way that they need to grow or they feel that they need to. And a lot of people go to work on their negatives. I mean, for me, I want to work on my positives. What are my strengths? What are my interests? I read a lot of management books and stuff like that. I try to stay away from the fad books. I want to read something that's going to help me grow. I was just referred over and actually read a book that appealed to me, and typically I don't just go jump in and read the latest, because everybody's always jumping on the latest book.
Right.
The Alchemist was a great book.
Oh my God!
It was
I have a
phenomenal
story
book.
about that book. I think that's one of my favorite books ever. This is way back when I was in the oil field, but I read that book on an airplane from Singapore to Australia,
Okay.
and I read the first half, and I was lost. I was like, "What the heck is going on here?" I didn't understand the story, right? And then on my way back, I read the other half, and I think the people that was around me sitting on the airplane, they thought I was crazy because I was just laughing so hard. Now I can understand the whole story, and then I started relating it to my life, on how I got to that particular point of my life, and I was like, man, I had to go through all these struggles, to pretty much get here.
I think that's what I appreciated most about it.
Yeah.
Is, I did go through and kind of knocked where I was, or was frustrated with where I was, but all of it had to do with it was a process. I wish I had gone to college and spent all that time learning and going down a path that I would find that I didn't want to go down. And
But it served you one way or another.
right,
I mean,
absolutely it has, and I wouldn't be where I am. And
Right.
people ask about education. We spent well into six figures on our education.
Right.
And because we do believe in growth,
Right.
and there is that one little nugget that you're going to get from each individual group.
Yep.
That you take with you, and you're going to make a lot more than what you spent. But
Yeah, and I would say, for us, it's probably about at least every quarter we're going to some type of an event, right, where we're trying to make ourselves better. Sometimes two to three times, in a quarter. Like 10X was great. We went out there, picked up nuggets there. I'm always listening to different podcasts and all that to continue to learn. But we also saw.
What do you think about that 10X?
So
We were there too.
right. So the main thing that I saw was that going from last year, I didn't go to the one last year, but for someone to like Grant to come back and stick to his word, right? So his thing is Mr. 10X,
10X.
right? And he basically 10X that event, right? So that was the first thing that I saw, is that it wasn't just a show. He actually went and got almost 10,000 people to show up to an event, and he only had like 1,500 the day before. But I thought that, you know, the speaker lineup was good. There were some that were, of course, better than others. But at the end of the day, everything that I go to, I usually come back with something, right? You know, what's going to be the next thing for us to do. And you know, I thought Ed Mayette was one of the better speakers that you know, picked up some nuggets from.
was phenomenal.
Yeah. So now
I didn't know who he was,
Yeah.
man. You know, until I went there.
Yeah.
And by the time I left, I was like, he's one of his biggest fans.
Yeah. Yeah, now, you know, I'm listening to him and his podcast now, but I thought it was a great event. You know, you can't go to an event like that and be pumped up when you leave out.
Well,
but
the production of the event, man.
Yeah.
Just the videos and the sound. I was looking at it and I was like, oh my God, what is this thing? What
That
are
was
these
on point.
people
There was
put
a lot of
together, you
there was a
know?
lot of detail put into that.
And
man.
you know,
They
it wasn't
did a great
cheap.
job.
No.
They didn't go cheap, you know,
No.
which is something I tell people all the time. Oh, let's just go this route because that's the cheapest way. I was like, that's not necessarily the best way to go.
no.
And so
Yeah.
I got that from that event as well. And the speakers, I think Dennis, he used to be a Ty Lopez hater.
I don't say hater. I just didn't stand the guy. I was
You were a Ty
Same thing
hater.
with me. I didn't understand him. Like, what we always said,
What
what
does he
did he do?
do?
Like, what does he do? And when he showed up and we realized, like, he actually had a system and a plan behind his, you know, his success, it was like, I get it now.
Yeah.
Right? You know, why he's a success. So he completely turned my mind. And
What I
my
liked
thoughts on
about
him.
what he did that day was that he got up on stage and I missed probably the first 30 minutes because I was a hater too. I was like, I'm not going to watch this guy. I walked off.
Right.
And then I came back and he's like, jaws, you know, wide open. And I was like, what's going on, man? This guy's good. And I was like, what? And he started just picking people out of the you know, the first
Audience.
rows, the audience.
Oh, going through the website.
Going through the websites.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so much value, man.
Right.
Because he's telling you exactly where you need to improve. And, you know, he's telling you, look, that's the reason why I'm successful, you know, it's
Right.
because I focus on these things.
Yeah.
So,
and Russell Brunson with $3 million in like an hour.
Did you see that?
how many words
I mean,
this guy can talk fast.
right.
He was a fast
Yeah,
talker.
he did it like an infomercial. Like he dropped it on you, and then but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
But then there's more, and then there's more, and then finally the price game was like small, and people were running to go buy his.
I've never
click
seen
funnels.
that before.
Yeah, I've never seen
$3
people
million
just run.
sold from the front of the stage
That
in
was
an hour.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That's
crazy.
that was
some
nuts.
pitching.
That was
great.
that was probably the coolest thing to see there.
Right,
I think Ed Milet spoke to me the most.
right.
You know, just as far as where I'm at and what
Right.
what
Yeah,
appeals
you
to
can
me.
relate. You can
Right.
relate.
Yeah. My 35-year-old self will never be like my 34-year-old self.
I liked Ed Milet. I like Andy. Andy talked a lot of things about how you really run a business, you know, core values, things of that nature. But the one that I wasn't impressed or anything, but I said, man, this man really took his time to get on his airplane, come here and talk for about an hour. What's the first one? Zimmerman.
Mm-hmm.
He runs a multi-billion-dollar
I saw that.
company.
Yeah.
And to start the event, for him to talk for an hour and some change, and then you think about it, it's like, why does he have to do that? You know, he's already got everything he needs, pretty
Right.
much. But then you get it. It's like, man, he's empowering other people to go do what it takes to get to where he's at.
Right.
And that right there sold me on the rest of the event. Because I wasn't sure about the event, to be honest with you. It was just me and Dennis and one of our business partners. We went there, but we had an extra ticket, and we didn't really want to bring anybody else because we didn't know if it was going to be a pitch fest.
Right.
We're going to be sold and sold and sold. And we know that we say no and we're not buying, right?
Right.
But somebody that's not accustomed to the environment, they're going to go and
They're gonna buy everything.
they're going to buy everything.
Right.
You
And
could
we saw that.
spend a lot of money
Yeah,
that
because
weekend.
everyone did pitch. Yeah, everyone had their thing, but,
But
In
it
fact, that was
wasn't-
one of the
it wasn't-
requirements.
yeah,
It wasn't cutthroat, you know. It wasn't to where they force you into
it's
running.
like here it is, and that's
Right,
it.
hey, this is what I got. If you want to buy it, fine.
Right.
I ended up buying a couple of products there, anyways. But what
Got
else you
it.
guys do for personal development?
So, outside of that, so besides ourselves and reading and things like that, one of the things we looked at is in the beginning of the year is that from hiring salespeople, we noticed that our closing started going down. It's like, okay, we're spending more money in marketing, but the closing is diving.
We can relate.
So we're not the only one.
Yeah.
And so we invested into the education of our salespeople and some sales training. John Martinez is what we ended up investing into.
Okay.
And we saw a night and day difference.
Really?
Our sales guy went from 7% and jumped up to 23. He's higher now.
Wow.
Now he's locking up between 2 to 3 a week now.
Oh, wow.
So he's definitely made a huge jump, and he can teach it now because he really internalized the information.
He took this training and just fully jumped in.
Right.
Mean, he absorbed everything. He
That's
really
good.
responded to it. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
that's the most important thing, right? That your people are open to go do stuff.
Right.
If they're not, then you have to pretty much swap them out and
Right.
get the one that's really open to go take the training.
Yeah, our main thing is not to hire that person, right? And so we try to hire now for our core values, right? So, the whole thing is that we wouldn't get that person because that person would even pass the first filter of our core values.
Right.
And so we look for that person that's looking for growth, that wants to, they don't wait on us, they take personal accountability to work on themselves, and then we're able to give them support that they need to help them get better. Regardless of whether they stay with us or they go do something else, right? The whole thing is the time that they were with us, did they get better and improve their lives, to get better at their skill set so they can, if they decide to go somewhere else and do their own thing or go work for someone else, they can take those same skills and be better there, right? And so I think that, not only do you invest into yourself, you help other people and by helping, invest
You're
into
investing
them.
in your business.
Right.
So productivity goes up as people,
Right.
Get better and get educated. Do we have any questions over here? Let's see if we got people. Because we're live, guys. We do this live. This is the real deal, man. By the way, if you want to get in contact with Andre and Andy, go to feedback at dracoproperties.com. Also, if you want to be a part of the meetup, 832-772-4330. That's how you get on the text list for the announcements on the meetup.
Right. Just text the word meetup to that phone number, 832-772-4330. Text the word meetup, and you'll receive the link for our meetup.
Remember, it's called Houston Premier Property Wholesale Network. Go on Meetup and find it. I highly suggest if you're wholesaling in the Houston area or close to the Houston area, first Monday of the month, correct?
First Monday of the month.
Show up, bring your business cards, and sit down for a showdown.
That's
because
right.
these guys got a lot of good information that they're giving out, and they'll get you on the right track. I got a lot of good ideas from just by sitting that day and learning what you guys are doing, right?
Right.
So I encourage, if you're in the Houston area, just go to the meetup. They also have like a few beers and things of that nature. So if you're one of those,
free food, free drinks,
you'll be at home.
That's not going to be the reason why people join.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's free
You'll
food
be
also.
surprised. Okay.
I'm just.
Some
You'll
people
be
just
surprised.
show up just for that, huh?
It's just an extra incentive, right?
There you go.
You got anything else, Dennis?
No, I mean, just thank the guys. I think for what you're doing. Really, I'm definitely gonna be there next meetup. I just want to meet, your people and hang out and see what you're doing. I've heard from Ricardo. It's really really good product, good value you're putting out. So I want to thank you for that. Because like you said, by raising the bar on what a wholesale is, you're helping our name too,
Right.
of everyone, the industry. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here, sharing your story. I don't know if we don't have any questions. Maybe we can.
No, we just got a bunch of people say hi, hello. We got a bunch of people watching right now.
Say hi to Eric. There's a friend of mine listening to us from Puerto Rico, and he always calls me and hey, I just listened to the new podcast. So Eric.
Eric is gonna say that I talked too much today. Hi, Eric. Matthew is watching. Say hi to Matthew. What's up, Jorge? the Millennials in action. We're starting a new meetup for Millennials, actually.
Okay.
Any of you Millennials? No, I doubt it.
Yeah.
I'm on the
You're
tail
probably
end.
on the borderline.
I am actually
Okay.
a millennial.
So we
far off of it.
we got approached by a bunch of very young millennials that are into the wholesaling, and they're mailing, and they're taking action. Actually,
Right. It's guys like Jorge that are
Yeah.
the reason why we have the meetup.
exactly.
'Cause
So
if they're going to take action, the information should be
Jorge
free.
was in your event.
Yeah.
Actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's been at several, and he's not afraid to take action. And that's
Right.
that's what we need in this industry. I mean, it takes work.
So they approached me and they said, Ricardo, we need help and we need guidance. And I said, okay, how do we do this right? And we came up with the idea of focusing the group for millennials. And it doesn't have to be about wholesaling, right? It can
Right.
be about how do you open up a business? How do you really run the business? How do you think as a CEO and a COO, and who does what?
Right.
And I came up with the idea of coming up with the meetup just to give them support, but let them run it.
Right.
So they're gonna meet here. We're gonna meet here when the first, I think it's Friday, next Friday, not this Friday, but the following Friday. And we're gonna pretty much set up roles and responsibilities, who's doing what, and take it from there. But it's called Millennials in Action, and it's more to encourage people to take action in anything. It could be selling ice cream or whatever.
Right.
It doesn't have to be our line of work. Not everybody wants to be a wholesaler. Not everybody wants to be a flipper. So
Right.
we don't want to discriminate anybody from being part of the group. But it was guys like Jorge that came up, and it was like 2 or 3 of them, and it happened like at the same time. So the universe is telling you to go.
We better
"Hey,
do this.
You need to do this, and I was like, okay, let's do a part of it.
Right.
So I'm gonna say hi to Jorge. We're looking forward to our first meeting. I want to say thank you to you guys for coming up to the today here and bringing your passports and everything. I know,
it was a hike.
I know we're a little far.
But it was worth it.
Man, I really like to do a repeat of the show, and so we can talk more about, maybe structuring deals, talk about systems. I'm pretty sure we use a lot of the same things.
Right.
Like we use Podio, CallRail, and all of that. But to teach more about wholesaling,
Right.
and how do we really get a property under contract? That
Right.
way we don't get that one crazy looking house, in the middle.
That 3-story townhome in
The
Alvin.
3-story weird looking thing, okay?
Right.
Because I picked those up too. Believe it or not, I picked up some weird properties.
Right.
Maybe from telling people, hey, not necessarily those are bad because they still make money, but maybe you got to buy them better.
Right.
But I'm gonna open the invitation for our next round, and hopefully we can do this in a couple of months or so, if time permits. You got anything, Dennis?
No, that's it. I think, like I said, just thank the guys. Thanks, Andy and Andre, and we'll see each other out there, in the battleground.
There we go.
I would
Appreciate
say
you guys having us.
in the networking
thanks.
grounds.
There we go.
Y'all have a good day. Bye.
right, thanks.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.